Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today, we tell you the story of an employee named Pam who should have been fired a long time ago. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Revenge at the DMV. I work for the Department of Motor Vehicles. In Texas, this means I process vehicle registration and titles along with handicap placards to provide information about how to minimize personal liability if your vehicle is stolen or was never removed from your name. It's actually an enjoyable job despite what many think, but it takes a specific understanding of the clientele to get a feel for the job. These are people who have to be here. They have a right to be grumpy, and they've got a right to bring their screaming, unbehaved crotch spawn if they can't find someone to watch them at home. I work with a lot of great people. When people think of the DMV, many often think it's this homogeneous line of ill-tempered crones with white hair and glares all around, like Roz from Monsters, Inc. In truth, we're a bunch of people with our own lives, our own struggles, our own triumphs, and our own shortcomings. We live, breathe, and bleed like anyone else out there. The only difference between us happens to be that we're very knowledgeable about a very boring subject. We all try to work hard and meet our productivity goals while being smooth, accurate, and polite to the customers who come into our office. And then there's Pam. Pam's not her real name. Actually, it is. Go to hell, Pam. Pam's the kind of lady who doesn't like to have conversations with people unless she either stands to gain something or she can gush about her children for the duration of the talk. Pam's not the kindest person either. She holds a very adversarial approach to customer interaction, often just trying to get them away from her window as quickly as she can in order to return to her phone, silently swiping away. Anytime a customer actually has what they need for the appropriate transaction, she gives a big huff, insists on doing nothing to make their transaction easier for them, and generally gives the impression that the DMV is the awful place many people stereotype it to be. Now, these two flaws would be forgivable if Pam had some surgical precision when it came to tax knowledge and procedures. Pam does not. Pam makes frequent mistakes that often come in the form of returning customers wondering why they're going to need to make a third stop despite having everything they were told they would need. This results in me having to say, "I'm sorry she didn't tell you that you needed thing. I'll be sure to talk with her about that." I promise them a front spot in line when they get back and send them on their way again. An important detail to note is that our office takes property tax. It's an entirely separate system from our motor vehicle section and requires an entirely separate transaction batch to be opened and subsequently closed at the end of the day. Pam hates taking property tax for that reason. One lovely morning, I find myself faced with a minor annoyance. A customer has a complicated transaction but has nothing filled out. I sigh, brace myself, and just remember that people don't have the same intimate knowledge of these processes that we do. They shouldn't be expected to have everything ready by the time I introduce myself. With this being a complicated transaction, it was going to be a solid 20 minutes of careful explanation. Okay, sign there and there, but not there. And that's when I heard Pam. "Anybody have their property tax open?" she asked, hoping to avoid the hassle of a whole 5 more minutes of work. "Anybody?" I raise my hand and explain, "I've got a long transaction ahead of me, could you just..." But before I finish my warning, she already sent the customer away from the window, content with making them wait a good 15 to 20 minutes over her own laziness. So as politely as I can, I look out to my darling customer and tell her, "Ma'am, my coworker and I are going to switch customers so I can take her property tax. Don't you worry, she'll take good care of you." The customer smiled and went along her merry way, off to place her pile of unfinished paperwork onto Pam's desk while I take the property tax transaction without making them wait. Taking property tax took all of 45 seconds, including the time it took to print their receipt. Pam struggled with her customer for another 25 minutes because she didn't bother explaining whose signatures needed to go where. By lunchtime, the coworkers sitting adjacent to Pam are giggling their heads off as I approach. They tell me Pam was fuming about that switcheroo all day and how it made her late for her smoke break. Go figure. They were also disgusted at her behavior for making someone wait so long because she didn't want to do the work. Her frustration put a smile on my face all day. And our second story. Permits, you say? Say goodbye to your unit. I work for an HVAC, heating and air conditioning company in California that specializes in commercial maintenance and installs. We're more of a niche service as we retrofit new units onto existing buildings, which is more difficult than a brand new construction project. The reason why is because California does not mess around when it comes to their building codes, to a point where their regulation becomes excessive and unnecessary. Because of this, a lot of the more seasoned property managers/contractors avoid pulling permits with cities for like-for-like replacements, meaning an old unit is being replaced with another of the same size, making no changes to structural mechanical stability. Because it can delay a project by months or sometimes outright destroy it, my company has high integrity and would never run a job that wasn't 100% safe. We always perform the installs to code and normally refuse to lose that integrity for cheaper work or to submit to a willful property owner. I'm also a woman in her late 20s who sounds 18. I bid the new units and designed the duct systems, very uncommon and relevant to the story. Now the story. This happened last year, so it may not be 100% accurate correspondence. We were bidding a project for a larger 10-ton unit in California to a facility management company based in the Midwest. I had a nice rapport with the account manager of this particular property and everything was going smoothly over the phone. I emailed the bid of around $12,000 for a direct replacement of the existing unit, which meant setting the unit on sleepers, 4x4 blocks of wood to distribute the weight evenly, and a new sheet metal plenum, box that pressurizes the air to blow into the ductwork and cool the building. Now, in every bid, I include a disclaimer that excludes permits. The account manager notices this, and I give him my spiel, basically what I explained above with more depth. I should mention that he was not familiar with HVAC work. At this point, he goes, "Okay, I'll pass this on to my boss, and let's get it going." Now, the outrage. I can't say much about this guy's boss, except that he was a major misogynist who didn't understand HVAC and was so overconfident that he introduced his email with his full name, first, middle, and last, even though his email signature already had all that. For this story, we'll call him A-hole. Here's how the phone call correspondence went down after initial emails. A-hole. This is A-hole. I'm not familiar with California regulations, but what kind of company doesn't pull permits? Are you the secretary? Who can I speak to about this? Me. Hello, I'm not the secretary. I made your bid. Same spiel about not doing the permits, but I'm more than happy to include the permits. Just give me a few days to get in touch with the city for pricing. Each city's different and usually only has one or two people who can explain their building requirements and pricing. It can sometimes take over a week just to get this information. A-hole. Absolutely not. I know you couldn't have done the bid because you're a woman. There are no women technicians and you sound too young to be in that kind of position. Give me the salesman, sweetie. I understand you're probably the first line of defense, but I'm the regional manager of this account, and I need to speak with someone who knows what they're talking about. At this point, I realized the guy didn't listen to one word I said and wasted our time. Unfortunately, I'm used to being treated this way, so I defaulted him to my boss. He has no problem stepping in with irate customers and has magic diffusing powder. My boss. Hi, is there a problem? A-hole. You know your receptionist is claiming she's a saleswoman on my job. You should write her up or something. You'll lose customers that way. My boss. Actually, she's my best saleswoman for commercial jobs and designs the ductwork better than the engineers do. What can I help you with? A-hole. Wow. Anyway, she isn't that good. She failed to include permits in the California Title 24 testing. These need to be included in all our bids. We're not ghetto. My boss. Sure. I'll have Captain Tiggos make a new bid. I had explained the situation to my boss prior to him taking the call. He wasn't going to bother arguing with this ignorant guy. He had more important duties as a VP and knew what would happen to the job. So this guy's from the Midwest, right? The job happened in a city where it was known to have some of the toughest regulations, and so begins malicious compliance. I make another bid that's now closer to $16,000, and they pay for the permits up front. You'll understand why in a minute. However, they liked my bid so much the first time around, they didn't want to change anything else. Read, A-hole didn't listen when I said, since we're permitting, we need to omit the sleepers and put down a curb adapter to keep costs down, and because obviously I'm a woman who didn't know WTF I was talking about. We get going on the permits, and what do you know? The inspector needs mechanical and structural plans because sleepers are no longer acceptable per code. Now that we're changing weight, the plans are required, another $1,500, Oh, and the curb adapter is something that's fabricated and requires more labor to install, another $1,500. And now the unit's too high up, sitting on the curb adapter. The roof needs a screen wall to cover the unit because the city likes to keep things pretty. Time to bring in a roofing contractor, another couple thousand. Anyways, you can see where all this is going. By the end of it, the company got cut off by their client, the people in the building, because of all the extra addendums. Since they were cut off, we had to remove the unit per the city and cap the drops, another $1,700, and the client was stuck with portable units to cool their giant space, which A-hole also had to pay for. Pretty sure by the end of it, they ended up owing around $30,000 for what could have been a simple and quick $12,000 job. A-hole lost the client, and we never heard from him again. The account manager I used to talk to let us know that A-hole got his butt chewed out and demoted until he proves his competence. And our last story. My neighbor decided to tear down the fence and ended up losing some of her yard space. This was several years ago. My dad has lived in the house I grew up in, and we've had the same neighbor the entire time. One day I'm home and I can hear a lot of noise coming from the backyard. Apparently she decided that it was time to redo the fence. Just for context, the fence was falling apart and it needed to go. I called my dad and told him that she'd apparently torn down the fence and decided that it was time. He wasn't happy, however. He also didn't mind because the holes in the fence allowed her 5 dogs to frequently come into our yard and poop all over his garden, and they dug up a few of his plants on occasion. After the fence was down, she put down a string for where she thought the property line was. When my dad came home, he didn't like it and put down one of his own. The 2 lines of string were approximately 1 foot apart. After discussing it with her, my dad was always civil about everything, usually not showing when he was upset at something. They decided to call someone from the city to mark it for them. She ended up losing part of her yard because when the properties were built, the builders did not put the fence on the property line correctly. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.